Open fire. Now that I have your attention.
Welcome to the Chiss Ascendancy podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chiss Ascendancy podcast. This is Josiah, and I am joined this evening by my good friend Finn Clay, aka Findor Moon on Instagram. And this is a little bonus session. We're going to jump on here and talk about a few articles of news that have come out recently. We obviously covered this in the podcast last week, but wanted to go into it at a little bit more depth, and some additional news that ties the far past to the most recent future of Star Wars and the Star Wars timeline, that is, and see how those all connect and what the future looks like and kind of go from there. So without further ado, just wanted to say thanks so much for Finn jumping on here kind of last minute. How's it going, buddy? How are you?
Honestly, dude, I'm doing great. I am thriving. I have suspended any Star Wars complaint that I have for a good while now because The Stranger has now joined the Vintage Collection. There's a Vintage Collection action figure of The Stranger now, so I'm holding up my end of the bargain where I bargained with the powers that be that said, if you make The Stranger in the Vintage Collection, I will stop complaining about things for a substantial amount of time. So I have no complaints about anything at all. Ever for anything, no reason whatsoever. But no, I'm doing great, man. I'm super stoked to be back on. It's always fun hopping on here and chatting because you just never have a clue where it's gonna go.
Yeah, I guess it is a it is a wild card. It could definitely go anywhere. So those of you who are watching or listening online, it's cool because I've got friends who are hardcore Star Wars fans. I've got friends who are surface level fans. I've got friends who just listen or pretend to watch it because they're my friend. So we got all different manners of Star Wars fans that tune into the show. So what we are so excited about that Finn just mentioned is that Qimir, aka The Stranger from the Acolyte. Now, obviously, we know there's a lot of opinions out there about the Acolyte. We're focusing on the fact that Qimir, aka The Stranger, who is the Darksider from the show, is played by Manny Jacinto. Fantastic Star Wars character. The choreography from the show, especially his portion of the choreography, fight choreography, some of the best we've gotten since stuff like Revenge of the Sith and the prequel trilogy, in my personal opinion. I think we've had that conversation before, Finn. So growing up, obviously a huge Star Wars fan. We both collected Star Wars action figures and other memorabilia. And the thing that we met over was we were both on Instagram and had our own Star Wars photography accounts. And so that's kind of how this friendship started. So there are definitely specific characters that were like, come on, do it. And every once in a while we get it. And that's Chimir's one of those ones. So just the iconic helmet, the Cortosis armor, you've got the two blades, including the Shoto blade. So it's just a fantastic addition to the collection, to quote General Grievous. And so it's super exciting. And I agree. It's one that we've been looking for, been on the hunt for a while, since the Acolyte came out. So it's funny because whether you do or don't like the show itself, we're all like, yeah. As long as we get Qimir in an action figure, we'll be fine. And you and I both prefer the heritage scale, the Vintage Collection 3 3/4 inch figure. So we finally got that reveal. So what we want to do, for those of you who are tuning in, we've got a couple of bits of news that we're going to try to kind of tie together in a sense. So I guess starting off with the biggest news that everybody's been talking about the last week or so is that Adam Driver and a few other folks got together. Director Soderbergh got together, and they basically, now that we have had a little bit more time, a little bit more facts come out, they basically had a movie ready to go as far as a treatment, as far as a script. The concept was always 100% done. And we talked about this a little bit on the most recent episode of the podcast, but Driver, starting in like 21, reached out to Kathleen Kennedy, or was reached out to by Kathleen Kennedy about the concept of coming back And Star Wars and Marvel, some of those bigger properties are some of those things where uh, people will do them and they're very exhausting because they expose you to people that never would have known who you were. The scale of fandom is just unimaginable. Like, you and I are huge Star Wars fans, and we can't even wrap our brain around what it would be to be in that universe, headlining a movie or a TV show, and how much that just opens up your whole life to the world. So a lot of times it's exhausting. And after the movie, whether it's a trilogy or a standalone or a TV series, a lot of people kind of bow out from the franchise. And I think that there's fond feelings for the franchise, but they are excited to have a little bit more privacy in their life. It's very exhausting to carry a franchise like Star Wars or Marvel or things of that nature. And so to hear that Adam Driver not only was interested in coming back, which we had never knew that before, not only interested in coming back, but interested in a continuation of the story of Kylo Ren, aka Ben Solo. And he had talked to director Soderbergh about it. They had treatments written, and he said it was one of the coolest things he's ever been a part of. And it's kind of crazy and kind of sad to hear him say it in that sense, because you can tell when he says it's one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of, you can tell that he didn't say it's one of the coolest ideas I've ever read. He says it's one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of. So it was more than just a concept over coffee at some point, and then we're not doing this. So I wanted to ask you, obviously, to tell me what you're thinking about the hunt for Ben Solo and what it could have been and everything. And also, I want to get your thoughts on this. I heard a thing recently that said maybe this is Disney testing the waters. They never do stuff like this. They never let you know what they're not going to do. This is the first Star Wars movie, quote unquote, that made it this far and was turned down. Supposedly there was never a Star Wars script ever turned down once it got to Disney. That's all handled within Lucasfilm. And then basically Lucasfilm hands you, I mean, you work in education. It's like the project's done and you just say, okay, sweet, turn it in. You know what I mean?
Right.
And this would be as if I did a whole research project and turned it into you. Go, all right, here you go, Mr. Finn. And you're like, I don't like this project. Do a different one. It's not really how the Disney Lucasfilm relationship works. Back to your desk. So a lot of people are saying that they think this is them gauging the actual interest before they put the finance behind it, because in all actuality, a lot of Disney projects haven't been as financially fruitful as they've hoped recently. A lot of Marvel stuff post that last Avengers movie has been up and down. And then for Star Wars, we haven't even had a movie since The Rise of Skywalker. And so Mando season 1 and 2 is fantastic. And then Mando season 3, a lot of people felt was good, but not as high quality as Mando season 2. And then Book of Boba Fett, you have two, like, it's a weird dichotomy of the first 2 episodes are like one whole way, and then the rest of the season is a whole different way. And then there's one episode that Boba Fett's not even in the show. Don't get me started. And so it's all over the place, So what are your thoughts? Do you think, A, what are your feelings about the hunt for Ben Solo? B, what's your gut feeling on, is this just a litmus test of, does the public want this movie before we just start it?
Okay. I'll start with A. Okay. My thoughts on the movie. My heart and soul mourn for the loss of this movie, because I mean, you and I have had many conversations about it before, maybe on your show or not. I know lots in just regular conversation, like over text and stuff like that. But I am a unashamed sequel trilogy apologist. I love the sequel trilogy, warts and all. I totally acknowledge all the flaws. Like, yes, it is not cohesive. Like, it needed a story treatment. It's an absolutely insane approach to a trilogy to not have like a story treatment for where the story starts and where it has to end. No direction in between. That is absolutely bonkers crazy. Like, that they did that. But the characters that they created, I love the characters.
Right.
Like, I love the characters that they created. There's so much potential for them. I don't always agree with everything that they did with their characters. Finn, especially, I'm quite bummed about the direction that they took Finn. But and Rose is a whole other story. Don't get me started on Rose because they did her dirty. She had so much potential. But I mean, I love Poe Dameron, probably one of my favorites of the entire trilogy. Rey is awesome. Kylo Ren is an absolute standout. Ben Solo, Kylo Ren,
Yeah.
absolute standout character for the entire trilogy. And that's one of the things that I think universally most Star Wars fans would agree on is that
Right.
Adam Driver absolutely crushed it as Ben Solo, Kylo Ren, and that they wanted to know more about his character.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants to know more about his character. So to know that they basically had a movie that was ready to start staffing, that was ready to start a production schedule, like they paid is it Kenneth Z. Burns, the screenwriter that they hired? They paid him $1.2 million to
Oh,
write this
wow.
script. Yeah, they paid him. I saw that detail come out today that they paid him $1.2 million to write this script that Steven Soderbergh and Adam Driver for like they decided to forego payment for their part in putting together the idea until it was officially greenlit.
Yeah.
I
So you
mean,
say, yeah, you're right. Scott C. Burns. And they paid
Scott
him. I didn't
Seaburn,
know
yeah,
that yet. Scott C. Burns, they paid him
yeah,
over $1 million for the treatment.
yeah. They shelled out over $1 million to have this guy write this
Wow.
screenplay, and everyone was so excited. The fact that the actors, the directors, and the higher ups at Lucasfilm were all unilaterally excited about this film,
Right.
and then they handed it over to the CEO of Disney, totally expecting him to just go, "Oh, cool, yeah, here you go, stamp, get
Yeah.
started."
Almost just like making them aware of what we're doing. We
Yeah,
weren't really asking necessarily for approval. You
yeah,
know what I
just
mean?
wanted to let you
We were just
know
letting you know what we're doing.
this is what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to get this absolute curveball of a response that no, I don't get it. Like
Yeah.
the reason they turned it down, or at least supposedly the reason they turned it down, was they just didn't get it. Like didn't get how can Ben Solo come back? Like we don't understand how that happens. No, we're not going to do that. And I'm like,
It's
this from the
crazy.
same people who
Yeah.
greenlit somehow Palpatine returned as at first the only explanation for how this guy
Yeah.
came back from the dead.
Yeah.
The same people who also greenlit bringing Boba Fett back from the dead, who also greenlit that Disney greenlit bringing Asajj Ventress back from the dead. I mean,
Yeah. It's crazy how like the so obviously in the older Clone Wars stuff, like when Maul comes back, for instance,
yeah,
um, Dave Filoni is working hand in hand with George Lucas on these projects, and so when Maul comes back, as a fan of Darth Maul, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm ready. My body aches for this. but when you hear the explanation, it was like he was just so pissed that he's been alive, even though he was cut in half. And you're like, your I'm here living on Earth brain goes, well, that doesn't make any freaking sense. What the heck is that? But then your Star Wars brain kicks in and goes, hell yeah, that makes all the sense.
Star Wars brain kicks in and he's like, this bastard was so angry that all he did, he was just fueled by white hot rage,
Yeah.
seething rage, to the point that he said, no severed spinal column can kill me.
Exactly. And the fact that, like, even so, and I know that there's, I put out a Snoke video, and a lot of on the YouTube side of things, the shorts get way more traction than the long form stuff. And I don't know if I'm not tech savvy, so I don't know if I just suck at hashtags or what it is, or if somebody, if it's going to blow up someday, who knows? But the longer stuff inevitably gets less viewership. You always have a Snoke ready. I appreciate that about you. That's why we're friends.
I try to have on theme figures on standby.
Yeah,
for the conversation.
That's classic. But there was just so many things that different comments like, "This is so stupid. Why would you waste time on this?" One guy commented, "Anything that you post like this is dumb," and it makes it says something along the lines of, "Putting out content covering the stupid stuff is the DNA for a stupid YouTube channel. That's my 2 cents for free." And I wanted to say, I'm glad you called it your 2 cents, but I'm sad to tell you it's actually worthless. But I try to have my online comment persona be a little bit kinder than that. But my real Josiah self was like, "You son of a..." But it's funny how that type of person, and you can say you don't like the sequels, and I'm the same way as you. I love them, but I'll be the first one to tell you I don't like this, and this, and I really like this, and this. Yeah. And it's funny to me that there are people who just will starkly say, like, that's not real Star Wars. But these are the people who also want a KOTOR movie made. And, we've talked recently about Darth Sion, and he's literally called the Lord of Pain. And he was like, his physical wounds were so strong that it poured his hate into the Force and kept him alive for God knows how many hundreds of years. And then you have Nihilus, who is...
There's perfect science to back why that works. I don't understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, what do you mean it doesn't make sense how it happens? Like, for instance, Ahsoka gets bested by Balin's skull and falls off the edge of a cliff, and she lands in the world between worlds. And there's no explanation. We just know there's a spiritual plane in Star Wars, and that's where she happened to be landed. And as a viewer, you're like, okay, that's how it goes. So I don't understand the pushback from Disney, specifically Bob Iger. And it makes me wonder, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I don't think we got that far into the question, but do you think any of this is just a scale to see what the Star Wars fandom thinks about a Ben Solo movie?
Do I hope that it is? Yes. I hope so badly that that's what they're doing, because someone has flown a plane over Disney headquarters with a banner behind it that says hashtag save the hunt for Ben Solo. And then there's been a billboard, a digital billboard that's been purchased in Times Square.
In Times Square, dude.
In Times Square, New York, that says save the hunt for Ben Solo. I mean, people are going hard trying to save this movie. So if that's what they're doing, then my God, I hope that's true. That, like, surely that there's been enough of a huge backlash to this decision, to this revelation, for them to be like, okay, if they're this pissed off that they didn't get this movie that we've told them isn't coming, then we definitely should greenlight it. Like, hopefully they're trying to pull a fast one on us like that. I don't trust them to be that clever.
Thoughtful? Yeah.
That thoughtful or that clever. Thoughtful is a better way to say it. Clever sounds like a jab, like I'm being a jerk. But I don't trust them to be that thoughtful, because I just don't really think that they care enough about it to do that. It's interesting
Disney.
I don't think the Disney execs care enough about the IP to be like, yeah, let's do this. Like, it'll be like a fun, like, little surprise, like how parents surprise their kids and take them to a theme park. Like, they'll be so, like, shocked, and it'll be great, and then they'll be like, oh, Bob, I can't believe you did that. Like, no, I don't think they're doing that. Like, I hope they are. That'd be great. I just don't think they are.
I think that Disney has always played their cards pretty close to their chest. And it is interesting to me, though, that they're like, Bob is the CEO. He's the chief executive officer, right? And so you would think his number one goal is, like, what can I do to make money? What do I do to, preserve the Star Wars franchise, and through that preserve Disney financially? And for instance, like with the Star Wars hotel on Batuu, like wasn't making money, was too expensive, people weren't going, shut it down, revamp, do something else, take the loss on our taxes so that it ends up making us money, whatever. you would think that something like a Ben Solo story, especially since there's been pushback recently on there's too much streaming, we need to go back to the silver screen, that's why we're going to do all these movies. You would think with someone that's universally loved like Kylo Ren, they said that recently they saw Adam Driver out in Hollywood Boulevard wearing a T-shirt, and his in the belly button region, his shirt was sticking out from the hernia he still has years later from carrying the sequel trilogy. That was a long buildup. But yeah,
I was
somebody who's
going, hey, oh my gosh, how did he get a hernia? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
no, but there was like, it's interesting how, for instance, like someone like John Boyega, who to me was as big as Adam Driver going into The Force Awakens. Like, he was doing just as many interviews. He had just as many posters in one of the last trailers leading up to the release coming up on 10 years ago, which is crazy. Him grabbing and igniting the lightsaber is like the send-off for the trailer. This is the last thing you're going to see before The Force Awakens actually comes out in December. And then he gets sent on a side mission with Rose in The Last Jedi because we don't know what to do with him, but we have him on contract. And their side quest really doesn't come to anything. Like, when you get to Cloud City and you meet Lando and he betrays you because he has to, because the Empire has him under their thumb, that's still a character that comes back around later and is a cherished character for the rest of all of the fandom years later. DJ is just like a one-off, like double crosser, and nothing ever comes of it. It was just such a strange use of him. But I say all that to say, like, John Boyega is passionate about coming back, and Daisy Ridley, obviously, she's got something she's working on. And it's funny how having someone like Soderbergh there, having Adam Driver, hiring someone like Scott Z. Burns, who I don't know who, I'm not familiar with his work, but he's trusted enough in that sphere that they paid him $1 million to make a script to flesh out the story. It's crazy how you've got your three main characters, right? You've got John Boyega, Daisy Ridley, Adam Driver on board. You've got Adam bringing up stories. You've got them talking about wanting to come back, and you have an audience who is the majority of people. And what I think original trilogy purists don't understand is their kids and grandkids, the sequels is their Star Wars. Like the same way that we grew up and everybody crapped on the prequels, and now everybody loves the prequels all of a sudden because me and you are able to spend money now. Like, that's my kids. Like, this is crazy to say, and I know this is a Star Wars heresy, but like, Kylo Ren is their Darth Vader. Like, they see Kylo Ren and they're like, that's Kylo Ren. You know what I mean?
My students, like when I'm teaching, like, and stuff, like, kids come in my room, like, I've got Funko Pops, like, all over my classroom, because I don't really collect Funko Pops, but like a friend of mine gave me one, like I got a couple in college once, and then it just kind of snowballs from there. Like, people know that you like them, then you get them as gifts all the time, like, and stuff. And I just think it's fun, like, to keep getting them, and I just put them in my classroom, and like, as soon as my kids come in and they see that I've got, like, oh my gosh, Mr. Clay, he's got bobbleheads, he's got Star Wars bobbleheads, and like, they're all like, there's always some kid that's like, where's Kylo Ren? Do you have Kylo Ren? And I've got to point out, like, yeah, I got him. And because that's like their Darth Vader, like, that's like the first really huge, big Star Wars bad guy that they ever got to see on a movie screen, more than likely. I mean, they love Kylo Ren. I mean, I have bulletin boards in my classrooms that have Star Wars droids on them, since I'm a STEAM teacher, technology and all that.
Right. Super cool.
I mean, I've got BB-8 on one of my bulletin boards, and like, kids come in like, BB-8, oh my gosh, BB-8, like, that's their R2-D2,
Right.
Like,
right.
They're going nuts over him, and it's, I mean, Star Wars heresy or not, like, to all the people out there who just absolutely, like, dump all over the sequel trilogy all the time. It's like, hey, I hate it for you, but people like the sequel trilogy. You don't, but people, and especially kids, like the sequel trilogy.
Well, think about this.
They like other Star Wars too, but they also
exactly.
like that.
Think about how us growing up. So when the prequels came out, we were so focused on the prequel characters, and then down the road we got comics and video games and things like that. But there was a moment in time where we were so heavily focused on the prequels that we didn't get a lot of Darth Vader stuff. And there were people that were our friends growing up who are now in their 20s and 30s who would die on the hill of Darth Maul is cooler than Darth Vader.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
you know what I mean?
And as a kid, I would have absolutely told you that Darth Maul was way cooler.
And now we're getting,
two lightsabers.
2 lightsabers versus 1. What are we talking about?
Yeah,
he looks like the devil. What are we talking about?
Yeah, literally looks like Satan with a flaming sword. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, so it's like, obviously, as you get older and there's comics and books and there's been Rogue One and there's been the Kenobi show where you get more Vader on screen, and we're starting to see that again. More people are seeing more of that, but like when everything's just a time capsule, like it's the whole, it's the GOAT debate in every sport. You know what I mean? You grew up in the 80s and 90s. Okay, obviously you like Michael Jordan better. There's a whole generation of people who like LeBron James better. And then there's going to be a whole generation of people who are growing up now who are going to care for, the young studs like, Anthony Edwards, Victor Wembanyama, and a lot of basketball talk. But there's those generational talents that people cling to because that's their hero growing up. And so my brain goes to, holy crap, they tried to say it wasn't this way, but clearly we had an idea and then we changed pace a little bit with The Last Jedi, and then we tried to overcorrect back with The Rise of Skywalker. Not to mention we had the whole Colin Trevorrow movie that didn't happen, which had a fantastic script. And I'll put it to you this way. Imagine what Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, and Adam Driver could do with a movie or a trilogy of movies or a dual, a duology, whatever idea, right? Or a TV series, whatever it would end up being. Imagine those characters in Finn, Rey, and Kylo / Ben, and those 3 actors / actresses with a cohesive, thought out, processed story going into the first treatment.
Unstoppable.
Because Adam Driver was fantastic, and we changed directions how many times? We wrecked the car 6 times on the way to the store, and we still got there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's one, obviously, like you said earlier, that's one of the big like poo-poos on the sequel trilogy is we didn't know what direction we were taking. Like Daisy really talks about how, supposedly Kathleen Kennedy said Palpatine was always the end-game big bad. And then Daisy really comes out with the comment that says, so it turns out Palpatine's granddaddy, but this is like 2019, so it's like, okay, so we didn't know that, and
well, then there's, of course, Daisy Ridley mentioned, she mentioned in an interview after the fact with Josh Gad, I believe, was interviewing her, asking her after the sequel trilogy was all like done and dusted. He asked her just kind of like, was this all like how it was supposed to go the whole time? And she totally spilled. She was like, no, absolutely not. Like, she's like, that's not. It changed direction so many different times. Like, when she spoke to J.J. Abrams, it was like either during or after the filming of The Force Awakens. She asked like, hey, can you tell me more about Rey's character? I just need to know what happens to her. Like, where are we ending? Like, she wanted to know
where should I be pulling from? Yeah.
And he straight up told her, he was like, oh, she's a Kenobi.
Mm-hmm.
She's a Kenobi. And they were going to do this whole, like, this kind of like spin on like, oh, the Skywalker saga has always been about, a Kenobi trains Skywalker, that Skywalker becomes a Jedi and all that. And then it was going to flip it on its head where like now Skywalker is going to train a Kenobi that's now going to save the galaxy and all that. It was going to be this really poetic, like, coming of like, a closing of the circle kind of thing, like a full circle moment, which I think is really cool. And I think there was plenty of hints in The Force Awakens to insinuate that, she was supposed to be a Kenobi. And then they changed it to she was going to be a nobody, which honestly, I loved the idea that she was No one. She's just some person. Like, she's just some random person. The Force chose her, because I think I think the story, because we always talk about how this is like these are moral stories for 12-year-olds. Like, the story that gives to a kid is, I think, a lot more impactful, that you don't have to come from some like important bloodline. It doesn't matter who your family is, whether they're good, they're bad, they're somewhere in between. You can still be the hero.
Right.
Like, you can be, like, on the grand scale of things, nobody, and
Mm-hmm.
still be the hero that the galaxy needs,
Right.
kind of thing.
It's
I
interesting
thought that
too
was
that
great.
because that original treatment you were talking about points so much more to utilizing Luke in a more powerful way in the sequel trilogy,
Yeah.
and so it's just interesting to see, like, is this a litmus test for is there a draw there, which obviously there is. It's been the most, what's the word I'm looking for, the most unified the Star Wars fandom has been since waiting for The Force Awakens, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Like, since The Force Awakens came out, most people were, it's pretty good. Some people really loved it. Some people thought it was okay. Some people thought it was a remake of A New Hope, but there wasn't hate towards it. Last Jedi obviously was a pretty strong divider. And those two sides, to me, it felt a lot like, if you didn't care for The Last Jedi, a lot of people who didn't care for The Last Jedi found that The Rise of Skywalker was better, or was a course correction, or whatever you want to call it. But the people who liked The Last Jedi have been getting pooped on for so many years leading up to this, that I feel like some of them kind of dug their heels in and were like, well, I'm not going to like The Rise of Skywalker because The Last Jedi is better. But I've been bullied for the last 2.5 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
And
mean, I definitely like The Last Jedi more than The Rise of Skywalker, but
right,
I love all three of them. I think they're great, but
right.
I'm a diehard. I am in the pro Last Jedi camp. Fight me about it. Like,
Yeah, I like both. I mean, there's definitely things that I
yeah.
would change. The thing that always resonates with me is Ryan Johnson is a huge Star Wars fan that got to make a Star Wars movie, and he
Hmm.
did things how they were in his brain, and for that I can't really blame him, because I would do the same thing. Um,
Yeah.
I do wish. Now, here's the crazy thing: even though I don't like The Last Jedi as much as I like, uh, say, The Rise of Skywalker, just as far as some different elements, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, I do believe if you give Ryan Johnson the trilogy instead of having J.J. Abrams bookend either one, I
Yeah.
think that the story we get is cohesive, and I think that the ideas we get and the way we're going would be better. And I think that, obviously, I'm never going to get over, like, the way that they treated Luke. When I say treated, I don't mean like beat him up. I mean the way the treatment for the character was written. Um, I'll never get over that because I'm such a hardcore Luke Skywalker fan. He's my favorite Jedi. And when you read in Legends, like, how many freaking times did the galaxy fall apart again? And Luke was the one standing in the ashes, like, we're going to rebuild this thing. You had Dark
Yeah.
Empire, you had Heir to the Empire, you had the Using Vong War, you had the Legacy of the Force series, where Jason Solo falls to the darkness trying to save the galaxy, and to kind of basically walks hand in hand in Anakin's footsteps, and Luke's just the constant the whole time, um, and so it's, and hearing Mark Hamill, bless his heart, saying, Luke would double down, Luke would double his resolve, and I'm like, that's the guy that's been this dude since 77. I think we should listen to his ideas. But I do
Hmm.
feel like if they gave Ryan the trilogy from the jump and said, let's sit down, let's sit with George, let's sit with Dave, let's figure out a story. I think, had Ryan been at the helm and not J.J. Abrams, and I don't know enough behind the scenes to know how this all worked out. I do know that George wanted to be at the table to help bring these things to fruition, and he had ideas. And George is a realist. I don't think he expected all of his ideas to be on screen, but Star Wars is still his baby, and he still wanted to be involved to some degree. And I do think that if Ryan had been in charge of the trilogy from the jump, George would have been involved, where I don't think that J.J. Abrams valued George's opinion. That's my personal take. I don't have anything. That's just my gut feeling. But
JJ
um,
seems more like the kind of guy that's like, JJ puts a lot of stock in JJ Abrams' opinion,
yes, 100%.
and maybe not as much everyone else's. I mean, like, the guy came out, like, a year or two after the sequel trilogy and was doing an interview. And in the interview, someone was asking him about like the sequel trilogy, and he was like thinking back to it. He's like, "Yeah, I mean, and looking back, it probably would have been a better idea for us to have like an overarching idea." And I'm like, "Yeah,
You think?
dude, you make movies like."
Yeah.
And this is an afterthought for you that you should have had a plan.
Yeah, it
Like
feels like
you made part of a third of a story, and then you
right.
had no idea where it was going to go, and you just handed it to someone and went, "All right."
Yeah, it's
Take
weird
it.
to me that they didn't
Like,
have, whether obviously the plan was not JJ coming back for 9. They had, my understanding was they felt like it was going to be JJ, then Ryan, then Colin Trevorrow. And
yeah.
it's crazy that those 3 gentlemen didn't have like dinner once to talk about the story.
Yeah.
It's just weird. Like it would
All
be
of their
strange.
movies felt like 3 individual movies, not
Yeah.
a trilogy.
Yeah. And going back to JJ really thinking highly of JJ, it's interesting that he puts so much stock in and course correcting and bringing his ideas back in to 9, which I felt like you had, imagine if you went to Subway and you're like, I just want a 6-inch meatball sub, please. And they're like 6 inches, no problem. I'm going to put a foot long meatball sandwich worth of meatballs in this 6-inch sub. It's just like, that's what the Rise of Skywalker was. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It was 10 pounds of grain in a 5-pound bag. And there was a
Yeah.
lot of good stuff. There
Moving
was
at
a lot of,
breakneck speeds to try and
yes,
get it all
yes.
in there.
Which when you're first seeing it, you're like, it's crazy enjoyable because there's so much Star Wars happening. But I do wish that like, comics are doing a world of difference, but not everybody's going to read the comics. But like the Knights of Ren, what's going on with that? You know what I mean? Like that could have been unpacked at such a deep level. And I guess that's a good segue into kind of talking about the far past of Star Wars, which on screen, the furthest back we've ever gone is the Acolyte, love it or hate it. There was the strong point, again, similar to the sequel trilogy. Story wasn't as strong as it probably should have been, but the strongest portion of it were Master Soul and the Stranger, right? And so the art of the Acolyte, which if you're a Star Wars fan, or if you maybe you just like literature, this is a really, really great coffee table book. Star Wars is cool now. Whenever we were growing up, it wasn't cool to just have random Star Wars stuff in your house. You would get picked on for that. But now it's cool all of a sudden. Whatever.
Oh yeah.
But the art of books are so fantastic, and it's such a great conversation starter, and it's a great way for let's say you're a surface level fan who wants to start watching some of the stuff. Disney Plus is a magical thing for that now, because you can watch extra side pieces alongside of the movies and get that extra depth. And if you're wanting to go to that second level of what's the lore, what's the feeling, what's the story, what's the idea, the concept behind these characters, those art of books, and you've got the art of The Force Awakens, the art of The Last Jedi, the art of Rebels, the art of different stuff. Any media that's come out in the last several years, they put out these books. If you're in the even deeper levels of reading novels and stuff, the Art of the High Republic is freaking fantastic, because we're talking about 200 years before the Phantom Menace. What's going on with all those characters, and obviously me and you are huge fans of the High Republic era. But the art of the Acolyte, I think you were saying before we started recording, maybe we get a little bit more insight into where they were going to try to take Plagueis and future, ideas, or why he only came in towards the end and things of that nature. But the biggest thing that's been leaked now, because the book doesn't come out till January of next year, the big leak was, or thing that they've kind of let float out there, was Leslie Headland knew that the Sith were, 2 at the time, no more, no less. And so is Qimir, is the Stranger the Acolyte of Plagueis, or is he this side character? And she said that he was going to start a Sith parallel group called the Knights of Ren, and that Qimir, the whole reason that that character looks the way he does, and the helmet and the armor and things of that nature, even just like the sarcastic swagger. If you read the comics, you see a lot of that from the Knights of Ren. And so it's interesting that that was going to be the character. So hopefully, are we going to get the Acolyte season 2? I don't think that's a thing, but if it is, I would love to see that fleshed out a little bit more. The cool thing is, where me and you stand on Star Wars, if it's a book or a comic, we're going to get the story regardless because we'll read it.
Oh, absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
but what are your thoughts on that? Like, what
Oh,
would you, Disney gives you a blank piece of paper, and whether it's a comic or a book or a TV show, where would you want to see that go? The idea of Qimir as the stranger and as the original Knight of Ren,
I mean, absolutely. I would greenlight season 2 of the Acolyte instantly. A lot of people, I hear their complaints. Another thing, I always get I somehow always end up on the real crap end of the stick when it comes to the fandom. I'm a Last Jedi apologist. I love that movie. I love the sequel trilogy. I wholeheartedly, with every fiber of my being, love the Acolyte, and then like everyone else just keeps crapping on it, and I'm over here like, season 2, come on, and everyone's like, shut up, and I'm like, oh, never. But I mean, I love that show. I mean, it's everything that I wanted in that show, and I can see where they were going. And I think the thing that everyone gets hung up on is that Leslie Headland, the showrunner and director of a lot of the series, I think she directed the whole series. I'll double check on
I
that.
believe so.
Um, but she had said that this series was going to be about largely exploring the Sith,
Mm-hmm.
but then said that the first season is kind of an unfolding murder mystery type deal where
Right.
they're trying to learn more about this string of Jedi murders that's happening, figure out who's doing them, why they're doing them, things like that. And then everyone's like, she said this show was going to be about learning more about the Sith, but the first season wasn't. It was just about this Jedi who made a mistake, and then like the Sith came in at the very end. And I'm like, what gets me is that I feel like people are missing it. That it's like, she said the show, capital S, show, the whole series.
Long story.
Long story is exploring the Sith. Like, you need multiple seasons to do that. We're not just exploring the Sith from the get-go in season 1. You got to lay down that foundation. You got to give us a buy-in to who these characters are, why they're here, help us understand their motivations. Like, if they just jumped in and like Osha is a Sith apprentice with Qimir, and May has no memory and she's in the Jedi Order with Vernestra, and like Sol and Jecki and Yord and all of them are already dead. And like, if we just jumped in right there, we'd be sitting there going, man, I wish we could see that. That sounds crazy that all that happened.
Right.
We would end up going back and seeing all that in flashbacks anyway. So we're just telling that story now and then just moving on in a linear form, like linear storytelling right here is what we're doing. But I love, like, because as soon as I heard Kylo Ren's theme playing behind Qimir in episode 5, I believe, of the Acolyte, I was like, hang on a second. That's literally Kylo Ren's theme.
Right.
What the heck? Why is that in here? What does that mean? Because then there was all this discussion about what's going to happen to Qimir. Oh, he's the Sith at the time. And especially once we saw Plagueis, like in that episode. Wait, so he is Plagueis's apprentice? So he was the apprentice that Plagueis had before Palpatine. Oh my gosh, what does that mean? Obviously something's going to happen to Qimir because he's either going to die or something's going to happen to him because he's got to get out of the way for Palpatine to come in.
Yeah, he's not around.
He's not around. And then as soon as we saw Plagueis, as soon as that was confirmed to be in this thing, I was like, oh my God, he's going to be a Knight of Ren. Like
Yeah. I think we talked
he
about it immediately. Like
because
as
he's
soon
got those
as
similarities.
yeah,
The
whenever
Ren comics, he looks just like
yep.
there's so many undeniable
Yeah, the
similarities.
helmet and just like there's also a line when the helmet first comes off and you see that it is Qimir and Master Soul says, "What are you?" and he says, "You might call me a Sith." And it's like, okay, the Sith knew that they were not ready at this point. This is still,
Yeah,
a couple hundred years before, maybe 100 years before, or something like that, before the Phantom Menace. And so we knew that that plan was not hatched yet, and we knew that that is like a big, it's not ready, and it's been going for 1,000 years. You can't just willy nilly go, all right, here we
right.
go. I'm a Sith. We've been working on this for millennia. So just to throw that out there, and the way that he said, "You might call me," we both jumped on that right away. Of okay, he said you might. That doesn't mean that that's what he thinks.
He didn't
Um,
say I'm a Sith. He said
yeah,
you might call me a Sith. And I remember us having that conversation. We were like, "Listen,
yeah,
I think he's being squirrely and trying to dance around this
right.
whole thing
Well,
or
plus, like
something."
obviously, I want to get more unpacked, and who knows if we'll ever get those stories. But like the damage to his back from clearly the Force Whip, or the Light Whip, which is what Vernestra has.
Yeah,
Um, And I'll never get over like Palpatine's words, the dogmatic, narrow view of the Jedi. Those words have stuck with me since like 2005. And so
yeah,
Qimir saying, "You would call me a Sith." It's his way of putting it back in Soul's face like, you think that you're the only one that's allowed to be a Force user. Therefore, it's your way or the highway. And you would call me a devil, essentially. You'd call me a liar. You'd call me this, 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 and this. Um, him throwing the word Sith out there is him. He's spitting in Soul's face, and he's insulting the fact
yeah.
that you only see it this one way, and clearly it's not that way. But you're going to go back and tell your people this is what you saw because you refuse to be wrong. And
Yep.
it's a strange prophecy of what ends up unwinding the whole Jedi Order, 100 years later, and
Oh, yeah.
so but I'm very interested to see, I would love to get more from that character in some sense. And there's a
Yeah, yeah,
there's
me
a
too.
moment in the Vader comics where they fight, and Vader looks at them and says, "Oh, the Knights of Ren, how far you have fallen."
Yeah,
And so there's a moment at some point where, whether they're in the unknown regions or whatever, what ends up happening with that story, that they're well known. They're you know what the Bible would call men of renown, people you would write about to your friends or to your family or leave stories about. And so I definitely want to know where that ends up going. Having
yeah,
someone who has a lightsaber, which we find out later that the lightsaber is called the Ren. That's
yeah.
the one who owns the lightsaber is the one who leads the pack. And so,
I have a question for you because you've got such a mind for like publishing details as far as books and comics.
sure.
Someone asked me this today, and I couldn't honestly remember from the Rise of Kylo Ren comic
Okay.
when Ren is explaining to Ben Solo who he is, that he's called Ren, that the lightsaber is the Ren. Did he specifically say that his lightsaber was passed down from the first Ren?
I
Because
want,
Kymir's lightsaber got destroyed in the Acolyte, so it could be
right.
that that is Kymir's rebuilt lightsaber.
Yeah, it could be. So we know that Kylo Ren's lightsaber, I think he destroys the Ren and he uses his own lightsaber, because you have the whole
Yes.
moment in the Rise of Kylo Ren comics where he bleeds the crystal.
Yeah.
Um, but I do believe that, because there's a moment where he talks about like, if you take this, you're the leader now. So we know, I don't remember if it's from the original Ren or the original leader, but we do know for a fact that Ren's having it. Ren meaning the person, not the lightsaber. Ren, the
Yeah.
person having Ren the lightsaber, is is a signal of like that's their talking stick, for lack of a better term. So
Right.
it's seemingly, I can't remember if he says it specifically, but it's definitely implied that like as long as we've been around, this thing here is whoever has this has the power. And he talks about it being passed down for generations. So he's not the first owner. So I would imagine the lore states that's the case.
So basically, Leslie Headland has confirmed that is Chimir's new lightsaber, which is
Probably
so cool that this is just opening a door. Like, even though the series did not get renewed, we're still able to learn more about how this show connects. Like,
right.
The furthest in the past that we have on the screen, if you don't count Young Jedi Adventures, the furthest back time that we have on screen for Star Wars is connecting the furthest in the future that we have on screen for Star Wars, like the two furthest like points in the timeline that we fleshed out, like on screen at least, are being connected by these two characters, like who are, I mean, Qimir and Kylo Ren are from divisive, to say the least, media from Star Wars, but they are universally loved characters from a divisive series or trilogy of movies.
Yeah, both of those characters.
There's a direct connection between those two characters. Is crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's just so cool. And like, not to mention, like, I mean, I studied religion, like broad scope religion in college, because that's the degree that they had available in that field. So like, I love that kind of stuff. It's interesting to me to like hear of religions in Star Wars, because like I like to kind of compare and contrast them, and what similarities do they have, what differences do they have, do they have like connections and parallels to real life, like real life religion and stuff like that. Like, it's so cool to me. And like, just the idea that like we're really seeing this resurgence of the occult in Star Wars in so many ways. Like, that there's like the rule of two Sith, but then there's also this like Sith cult, like that's off here to the side, that's the Knights of Ren, that's kind of doing their own thing. But then also the rule of two Sith are tied into the Sith Eternal cult. So then there's like all these other people on
the Sith Eternal, the Sith cultists on Exegol. I mean, either that was a Sith type planet, like Korriban, or in canon they've changed it from Korriban to Moraband. Either Exegol was something like that. In my view, the way that they have hidden it in the map and whatnot, it almost seems like Exegol was from even further back in the timeline. And those great statues, the feeling of it is if you went back in time and you were walking through ancient Egypt or something like that, and you've got these, several 100-foot statues of somebody you've never seen before.
You're walking through the Valley of Kings and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Hands down, top 3 lightsaber battle of all of Star Wars.
Yeah.
You've got Revenge of the Sith, number 1 lightsaber fighting, Phantom Menace number 2, Qimir 3.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't locate exactly the verbiage, but basically, he tells Ben, you have to give a good death to join. And so he's killed all these other Jedi. And one thing that was very interesting, I forgot about this, going back and taking a peek at it. Snoke, whose voice is coming from Palpatine, that's a whole other story that we don't freaking have fleshed out. Like, just the video I posted the other day about like, who does Snoke think that he is or whatever. But Ren tells Ben Solo, he says, Snoke was wrong about you. He says, you're not coming with us because you're fighting this every step of the way. Snoke was wrong. And he says, you can't touch the shadow. And Ben says, I am the shadow. And he, kills the dude. He goes, here's your good death. And he kills him. And of course, the other Knights of Ren, I think it's a preservation thing where they're like, I'm just going to follow this guy here because he just killed the best of us. But it's interesting hearing like the pull of Ben, where he naturally is in the light, and feels like he has to go to the dark. See, look how cool those guys are, dude. We still never got a figure in the vintage collection of Supreme Leader Kylo Ren with the helmet.
No, we didn't.
Which is crazy.
No,
and supposedly we're getting a Black Series helmet of Supreme Leader Kylo, which will be cool to get. So wrapping things up, talking about the hunt for Ben Solo, Qimir as the first originator of the offshoot of the Sith that becomes known as the Knights of Ren. If they walk into your office at the school and they say, "Hey, we need your help writing a script for this new Jedi Order that Rey's going to be building," what is, fan service, your personal opinion, what makes money at the box office? Do you think that there's a way that they can finally actually bring Ben in, bring Finn back on board? And who do you think is going to end up being the villain of that movie or trilogy? Is it a whole new character? Because we've defeated the Sith again, once and for all, for the second or third time. The Knights of Ren have all been defeated by Ben on Exegol. So what do you think is big enough to trump Palpatine returning?
See, I'm not sure. See, I don't know if they're going to go... I don't think that they're necessarily going to go the route of like, oh, this is going to be like, this has to be bigger than the Sith. I just think they have to find an enemy that is also, like horrifying. Like they have to find an enemy that like is scary. Like it seems like a threat and is different than what we've seen before. If there's another, here's an army of space fascists in white plastic, ta-da, here they are. Like, if it's just another like rehash, like, and
Stormtroopers 3.0.
Yeah, the First Order's dead, and now this is the whatever, like the Third Order, Second Order, Third Order, like they can't keep doing that. Like we've had the clones, we've had the Stormtroopers, we've had the First Order Stormtroopers, we had the Sith Troopers. Like it's got to be something. It's got to be something new. I like kind of like what the High Republic did. I like that the kind of route they went. They literally went space Viking terrorists. And it worked so well. Like
and having the Nameless as creatures who feed off of energy of the Force. What's funny is if the Nameless came across Sith, it would have such a smaller effect on a Sith than a Jedi, because the Sith is like, oh, I'm afraid. That makes me angry, and it would just like we see that with
more powerful.
Yeah, like, we see that with Aslan, like when he's in the is it Trials of the Jedi is the last one, when they're on the Nameless homeworld and they're trying to bring him back to restore balance so that the blight is taken aback. And Aslan gets nervous and just reaches out with the Force and just explodes like a herd of Nameless. It's like, well, that's not what we came here to do, Aslan. Which that's a whole other story that hopefully gets expanded upon.
Side note, Aslan Rel absolutely becomes a Sith, and I think that maybe Aslan Rel becomes Plagueis' master. Never mind. That's a whole other topic.
Okay.
But I'm just going to drop that nugget and then and then totally not say anything else about it, because we'll have another
that will be fun.
We'll have another conversation about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the whatever enemy it is, it has to be different. It has to be, they've got to have some sort of reason to be against the Jedi. So there's lots of different things that they could pull from. They can have connections, connective tissue from somewhere in, the Star Wars zeitgeist, like
it's going to be hard to, if Ahsoka really is leading towards Abeloth, which in all of the expanded universe, which is now called Legends, anybody who's read those books, the Fate of the Jedi series, it took Luke and Darth Krayt from across the galaxy meeting on a spiritual plane to attack Abeloth and defeat her once and for all. She's like the most horrifying character in Star Wars ever. If they are going that route of, let's say, Shin drinks from the fount of power, bathes in the pool of knowledge, or whatever the case might be in Ahsoka season 2.
Yeah.
If Abeloth is the big bad of the Mandoverse, if that's what they end up doing, to me, if she's on as grand of a scale as what she was in the Fate of the Jedi series, it will almost, like, I'm totally for her coming back because it's such a fascinating character. But in my opinion, and give me your thoughts, it almost cheapens the sequel trilogy and the Threat of the First Order because of how crazy Abeloth is as a character and the threat level that she brings to the table.
And that's like the fine line that they've got to walk. Like, whatever threat that they do, if it's in a part of the timeline that's before the sequel trilogy, it can't be too crazy, because if they go too hard, then they invalidate, like, or at least, like you said, cheapen the First Order, like, and the Final Order. They can't go do anything to cheapen the story that they already have, but they can do like a different story. I think that there's a way that they can bring Abeloth into it, but not go as hard as
What
it
could
did
be
Legend.
interesting?
Like Thrawn and Abeloth can still be cool, right, and not cheapen, what comes after.
Yeah, in my opinion, Thrawn is a big enough threat in and of himself, with the help of the Night Sisters and the Witches of the Mist and all of that.
Yeah.
If they defeat Thrawn, and that's a whole other conversation because I think that's a waste. But if they defeat Thrawn, and I mean, I guess in Waiting in the Wings, you could have something like, let's say Abeloth is contained on Peridia by Ahsoka, and that's like her great act. That's how she becomes the daughter, is by keeping Abeloth contained, and maybe Abeloth becomes uncontained in the Rey movie or something of that nature. Or you could have like a Yuuzhan Vong type species that's just from a whole different. The Yuuzhan Vong are basically being replaced in literature by the Grisks, which is from the Thrawn trilogy, the Ascendancy trilogy. So,
which they've kind of made them like a ticking time bomb. They've made it seem like the Grisk invasion is inevitable.
Right.
And that's what they just are fighting against. So it's like that. I mean, that honestly could be a really fun thing to bring into the Rey movie. Like, what can we do to one up it? We're bringing in a near intergalactic invasion of these creatures that defy understanding. Not like sentient understanding that we know of, like,
right. Yeah, it would be it's whatever. It's kind of crazy because you don't want to have to play like the 1-up game, because you want to have movies and things like that in the future. And I know partially there's so many other places on the timeline where you can go 1,000 years back to Dawn of the Jedi, which is what they're going to do eventually. But I think, like, because the sequel trilogy was 30 years after the Empire, you had to have something that made sense there. But because the Rey movie is going to be shortly after the sequel trilogy, but on Earth, in our human timeline, we're getting Ahsoka and Rey within a couple of years of each other. You can't have Ahsoka defeat Abeloth and then Rey is fighting, like, Palpatine's other clone son or whatever, and it's like they just beat Abeloth like a year ago. Like, you won't feel the pressure that you're supposed to feel when you're fearing for the lives of everybody around you that you love. But there's a lot to go on. There could be so many things, but
I think
oh my gosh,
I think they could totally, if they greenlit a season 2 of the Acolyte that begins to explain like more of the Sith lore and starts leaning more into the lore of the Knights of Ren, while also greenlighting the hunt for Ben Solo, like kind of following up on Ben Solo's story, probably exploring the netherworld of the Force a bit, getting into more of the mystical side, which is really what George wanted to do
Right.
going forward. And then also greenlight like an ongoing like comic series that just follows the Knights of Ren,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe not even just in the time span that we've known. Like go back and tell the Knights of Ren story through time. Like where have they been? Where they
Yeah.
go through time? They're like little stuff like that can create this really awesome connective tissue. So that way, like things can be introduced and more stuff can be brought into the picture that can lead into the Rey movie. There's rumors that this kid that is in the Star Wars Starfighter movie with Ryan Gosling, that
Oh,
Amy
supposed
Adams'
to be.
character is
Yeah.
supposed to be a Jedi, and her son, that kid, is also a Jedi, and that maybe Ryan Gosling is trying to find Rey to take this kid to her.
Oh,
So
interesting.
like that's probably going to tie together a little bit. That would be cool. So it's like I feel like they're starting to kind of coalesce this idea of what the post Rise of Skywalker era looks like. It just sucks that like media outlets that could have had really great um, contextualization for that,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Acolyte
You want it.
and The Hunt for Ben Solo, aren't
Right.
happening.
Yeah. You want it to all tie together. Like I think that Star Wars is better than Marvel. Like I think as far as an IP, like it'll always Star Wars
Yeah,
will always be like the thing that opened the door for all these other stories to walk through. But I think that in recent years, like with the Russo brothers writing that first decade of Marvel and having like all of these different crazy deep cuts, making people like Guardians of the Galaxy people that everybody knows. You never would have
yeah,
known who Groot was 15 years ago. Um, but I think that having those characters, um, having a story that is meant to be cohesive and all lead to one place is what made the Avengers, Infinity War, and uh, what is the very very last one, Infinity War
Endgame.
and Endgame. That's what made
Yeah,
those so powerful because everything was leading up to Thanos. Everything was leading up to this moment, and in Infinity War all of our heroes come together and it's just not enough. And then Endgame is this crazy, sci-fi journey, through time to undo our biggest loss. Um,
yeah,
I just think like the world between worlds and things of that nature. Um, there's so many ways you could bring Ben Solo back, and if Adam Driver's on board and we've spent $1 million for a script that Dave Filoni says is makes sense, like
yep.
I don't know what we're doing. So we could do this forever, but uh, super happy to have you on. Glad to chop it up and unpack. I really do think that there could be some cohesion here from the Knights of Ren and Ben Solo, and tying together what we have currently as the oldest story in Star Wars and the latest story in Star Wars, all coming
Yeah,
together. So the future of the Jedi Order is at stake here with the hunt for Ben Solo, and maybe the hunt for Ben Solo isn't its own thing, but it can be somehow grafted into what they want to do with Rey. That would be a really powerful thing if they want to do that. Or maybe the Hunt for Ben Solo and the Rey movie can be a duology, and then those stories converge for the end of a trilogy. In my brain, when you're talking about the galactic scale, you have to do 3 movies. You can't just do one. That's just how my brain works because we've had 3 trilogies so far. So, Finn, dude, thank you for last minute jumping on here and just kind of chopping it up. Uh,
no problem, man.
glad to have you
Always
on.
happy to be here.
And thank you guys so much for listening, tuning in on YouTube and all those other audio platforms. Make sure to follow Finn at Findor Moon on Instagram. He does amazing toy photography. He even does custom work, which is super cool. And we'll be here later this week for part 4 of our Heir to the Empire read through, back with me and Samuel. So stay tuned. We're putting out lots of stuff, and so we're excited to keep the ball rolling. And wherever you are, whatever you're doing, remember the Force will be with you always, and we have to keep the hunt for Ben Solo alive. Buy an ad in your local newspaper. Put something on the airwaves. Send it to your friends that are in the U.S. military who are on submarines. If they haven't gotten the news yet, do whatever it takes.
Save
I
the
think
Acolyte.
save the Acolyte, bring back Ben Solo. I think that it's Palpatine that tells Vader, "Show no mercy."
Do what must be done, Lord Vader. Do not hesitate. Show no mercy.
We have to do whatever it takes to make it happen. So thank you once again for tuning in, everyone. May the Force be with you always, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.